I'd like to invite the choir to sing a couple of songs.
Pray for the people who lived in these hills. Brave the great warriors who confronted the foe, to defend what is holy, to defend what is true. Our Lord on mankind did this duty bestow. Glad all our children who people these hills, glad in the visions their hearts understand. What became of our struggles, now the records are still, but courage still lingers, giving strength to the land. Men hunger for riches, for power and for fame, by favor they think they will grow. The battles they fight, the victories they win, are never the victories they know. Let hunger for riches, for power and for fame, by favor they think they will grow. The battles they fight, the victories they win, are never the victories they know. Brave were the people who lived in these hills. Brave the great warriors who confronted the foe, to defend what is holy, to defend what is true. Our Lord of mankind did this duty bestow. Our Lord of mankind did this duty bestow. Sing out with joy, God's light has descended. Sing out with joy, all our nights have ended. Sing out with joy, God's light has descended. Sing out with joy, all our nights have ended. Light on every mountain, oh light in every valley. Light from all the masters, we live in the Lord. Light on every mountain, oh light in every valley. Light from all the masters, we live in the Lord. Sing out with joy, God's light has descended. Sing out with joy, all our nights have ended. Sing out with joy, God's light has descended. Sing out with joy, all our nights have ended. Light on every mountain, oh light in every valley. Light from all the masters, we live in the Lord. Light on every mountain, oh light in every valley. Light from all the masters, we live in the Lord. Light on every mountain, oh light in every valley. Light from all the masters, we live in the Lord.
Thank you to the choir that really filled the room with light and joy. And that's who Swami was. That was the vibrations he always carried. And tomorrow is his birthday, and so the Satsang is a commemoration of his birthday. And I think in Pune it is particularly special because this is a city where Swami lived more than a decade ago. And I think it was, a big blessing for Pune that he chose to live here, to build a house here, and spend the later years of his life with people in Pune. Of course, he traveled all around the world. And as I was preparing for today's satsang, I listened to a few of his talks. I read about his life, and I felt, the later part of his life we talk a lot about. his second coming to India, so to say. But probably the first time when he came, not the first time, but when he stayed in India, we have probably overlooked looking at some of the stories there in as much detail. And I'd like to share one which stood out for me as very characteristic of what Swami was. And I was looking back, if Swami wanted us to remember him, he probably didn't care so much about us talking about his personality, which of course was magnificent and divine, but probably some of the life lessons and examples that Swami set for us would be inspirational. So in one of his talks, I think it was a talk that he gave on one of his birthdays, he said that, when you break a bone, it hurts a lot. Yeah? But when the body rebuilds itself around that fracture, the structure becomes much stronger than what it was before. Now, the doctors in the room can validate that, but Swami said this. Yeah. And I think in many ways, that's what his life was. There were many breakages, but he never took that as a signal to step back. He, in as many words, said very strongly that if you're cleaning the gutter, let's say there's a lot of muck to be cleaned. It could be a project, it could be a situation, it could be people and their problems. He said, think of the cleanliness that will happen afterwards. So think of what is the goal and what is the outcome. And don't get stuck in the mud. Don't get stuck in the muck. So he was always very solution-oriented, and he didn't look at problems as problems, but he saw them as something which could be turned into a strength. So Swami was to come to India with Master towards the end of his life. So 1950, 51, 52, there were plans made for Swami to accompany Master to India. Somehow or the other, they never fructified. The last year, of course, with Master's own passing. But one thing that always motivated Swami about India, or rather it was much more than motivation, it was a life mission, was to make his Guru known in his homeland. Master took these great teachings to the West, and his life, that was Master's mission. But Swami's mission was to make Master known in his homeland in India. And there was work happening in India at that time. Master did have a school in Ranchi, and the organization did run some centers. But the work itself was not on the scale that Master would have liked to see it. And by scale, I don't mean numbers, but by people actually living these teachings. Master called his teachings a new inspiration, a new expression of ancient teachings of Kriya Yoga. So India at that time had a lot of ashrams, and the ashrams had their own traditions, and there were some gurus in some ashrams, in other places they were run in certain traditions. But this particular teachings of Master, the way he wanted, was not how it was being taught and expressed. So Swami came to India, and one of the things he thought was it would be good to have a nice ashram in Delhi. Delhi, after independence at that time, was rebuilding, and he thought that ashram could be a beacon of light for Master's work in India. Of course, he did go to other cities. He went to Kolkata, and he found that there was a certain pattern and rhythm in which things were running. People didn't want to change. And Swami also knew this, that it's hard to work with older energies. So he always was of the mind that you could build something which is a new expression. And all of Master's teachings were very futuristic. So he came to Delhi, and of course, he did a whole bunch of things. He lectured in many cities, and he traveled all over India, and there were thousands who came to his lectures, and he was embraced by Indian audiences. And he also repeatedly said many times, I love to share these teachings in India, because Indians have a very open heart and receptivity, and they are able to take these teachings in. And he also told Indians that, there is a lot you can learn from the West, but don't try to become like the West. So he always wanted that spirit of spirituality, that openness of the heart, the love and devotion, and the receptivity is something that India must hold on to. So, coming back to the story of the ashram, he started looking for land where it could be built. And of course, it was not easy to find land in Delhi. Pretty much the focus of the government was to build hospitals, to build schools, to build businesses and residential areas. Because when you're building a new city and a country, and that's the capital, that's what you would want to lay out. So ashrams were not a priority. So wherever Swami went and talked about this, people said, don't think it's going to fructify. But here is who Swami was. He never took no for an answer. So he went around places, and in this locality near the Birla Mandir in Delhi, there is a place called Mandir Marg. There he found a piece of land which could be potentially a spot for the ashram. It was in the green belt, but in terms of zoning, it was by the side of the green belt. So it could be. So Swami saw that, a few friends suggested, and he went and spoke to the commissioner of that place, who was a bureaucrat. But he was taken in by Swami's, Swami had that grace and blessings of master and a very magnetic personality. He said, this is a great idea, but this is not the priority, and I don't think this is going to work out. But the person who can really make this work is Pandit Nehru himself. And you will have to get his nod on this. I can ask other commissioners to support your proposal. So Swami said, you do what you can, you support that, and let me see. And Swami got a new target. Now he had to influence Pandit Nehru to give approval for this property. And so he was staying with a Kashmiri family, and there was Rani Bhan and her son Indu Bhan, and he was living in their outhouse. And they were Kashmiri Pandits, and obviously as a community in Delhi, they were connected in some ways. And I think it was Rani Bhan's mother who knew an aunt of Indira Gandhi. And she said he was living in the house, and he's so, really after this project and wanting to knock on the right door. And she said, you can try your luck, but I can connect you to her aunt. And so she connected Swami to the aunt. And the aunt, of course, was so full of joy when she met Swami. She said, I want to help this man. So she said, I can set you up for a meeting with Indira, and then it is your luck. And so Swami got a meeting with Indira Gandhi, and he went for the meeting. And Indira Gandhi at that time had a lot of work to do, and she was a woman of great grit and purpose and stern. So she said, tell me very quickly what you want. I'm traveling tomorrow and I'm busy. I have to go to France. And he said, do you speak French? And she said, yes, I speak French. And he said, oh, that's interesting. Where did you learn? And she said, oh, I went to school in Switzerland in the mountains, and that's where I learned. And where did you go to school? And he mentioned this village where she mentioned this village where she went to school. And he said, oh, I was just on the next hill in the same village in Switzerland. And he had, in the meanwhile, started speaking to her in French. So they were talking in French, and Indira Gandhi was getting prepped up for her time in Paris to speak in French. And you can imagine her heart melted. And she took him out to the garden to show 2 tiger cubs she had, and they had a lot chit-chat. And said, don't worry, I'll put in a word to Pandit Nehru. And she put in a word to Pandit Nehru, and Pandit Nehru asked to meet him. But Pandit Nehru was a very busy man again. He was, I think, the Prime Minister at that time, and he didn't have time for chit-chat, and building an ashram was not really their priority, but there are other forces at play. He lands in front of Pandit Nehru. But Swami knew how to, work with these things. And when there's a desire in your heart, you go to great lengths. So he did not go with a wishy-washy proposal. He actually drew a painting of what that ashram would look like. On one corner was the Himalayas, a structure that looked like that, and very magnetic ashram, a lot of things there, every little detail. And he went with this diagram. Usually you don't get time with Pandit Nehru, but just that day, Nehru had lost a very close friend, and he was in a very reflective mood. And seeing Swami was a great comfort to him. And he looked through Swamiji's plan, and he spoke to him for 40 minutes, which when he came out, Pandit Nehru's secretary told him, was the time that he gave to ambassadors who had very complex international agendas. So that was the best slot somebody could have got in terms of audience with him. And Pandit Nehru did not commit. He said, I will have to walk that land and see what can be done. But within a week, he had walked that land and he gave that approval. And Swami was delighted. The rest is history. I won't go into it. That ashram never got built. The organization did not like the idea, and they thought he was jumping guns, and they thought they had to rein him in, and hence, therefore, was a different episode that unfolded. But in retrospect, Swami said this, that the lesson there for me was the fact that, you also have to tune into Master's will. And somewhere on that particular project, I was not feeling guided by him. And maybe Master was in some ways protecting me from the big disappointment that was to come later on in my life. But 40 years later, Master prompted Swami to come back to India. And that's when he came at a week's notice. He called a bunch of his close friends. They sat in a cafe. The tickets were getting booked. He wanted some clothes to be dyed in the ochre color, the Swami clothes that he wore, which was not what he wore in Europe. And in a week's time, he was on a flight to India to build Master's work. And I think that is the legacy that we are all part of. He laid out a beautiful vision for Ananda's work in India. He said there should be a community. There should be a headquarters of Ananda Sangha. There should be a men's monastery. And there should be a women's monastery. And there should be a yoga institute. And there should be a hospice. So he had very clear plans. When Swami came to India, Satan was also playing games. And Swami, this is Satan's favorite haunt is around saints, right? So there were many tests. So when Swami was sitting on the plane, Satan was telling, this is the time for your retirement. You've earned this life and you've done everything. Why are you getting into a project in your 70s? Which was the age at which Swami was coming back to India. But Swami in his mind was, Master's opened all doors and it is now or never. And we are all so grateful that that happened because we are all part of that legacy. The second coming of Swami into India and the work that he built, he went to great lengths. His health was a constant challenge. And I think Dr. Mansi, for instance, was a close aid to the many hospitalizations that happened when he was in Pune. He battled with cancer in the intestine. His heart would go up and down every now and then. There were many complications. With double pneumonia, his respiratory system had thrown up many challenges. His hip was replaced. The list is endless. But what was Swami doing through all of that? He was taking on karma of various people to manifest a work like this. And he was in constant bliss and joy. And none of these ailments and the medical records and readings, they never bothered him. It never touched him. He was always in tune with Master, and he was always listening in to what is it that Master wanted. Now, when we look back at that story, I think here is a lesson for all of us. Things break in our life. How can we rebuild and be stronger? As humans, as devotees, we are all flawed. We are all broken in many ways. We're challenged with many limitations, with many temptations, with many desires, with many obligations, with many frustrations. But how can we rebuild? If Swami could do this towards the last decade of his life and a little bit more, to build a work like this in India and to leave the comforts. Those of you who've gone to the village or watched videos know what his home in Ananda village looked like, the crystal hermitage. That's one of the most beautiful places on the world. He left that to be in Vatunde. And we all still hesitate to go to Vatunde because the road is not good. Yeah. So, Vatunde is just a place, but it's about everything that he did. The kind of leaps he took. He lived in a vague apartment, Vanshaj apartment. I've lived there for a little bit in Pashan. That's where he was living. The dogs would howl at night, and Swami was trying to compose music or write books, but he never complained. And in many ways, the masters call us to spread light in our own little ways to those around us. That's really the mission we are on, in our own little ways. And the message of his life is to just reflect back and see if this is what he did, if this is how indomitable his spirit was despite what he went through. What am I doing with my life? How would I feel on my deathbed? Would I have the same satisfaction of having done everything that was asked of me? The Brigu reading said that Swami would get dharma moksha by building the work in India. But Swami didn't care about that dharma moksha. So dharma moksha means you don't have to do any work anymore, right? But that's not the goal that he was at, but that's what it delivered for him. So it indeed was a fairly challenging work and a mission that was sitting for over 4 decades. And the new expression that he brought has built so many devotees, and the teachings of Kriya Yoga lived much more as a living teaching in our lives. So I think every Kriya that we do, we need to ask ourselves when we feel distracted, when we feel disappointed, is it really a challenge? Or can I do better? How do I spread light in other people's lives? And it can be in small and big ways. But having that vision of being a channel for the masters is, I think, what the real ask of us as devotees are. And therefore finding ways in which we can serve this mission of making Master known in his homeland and spreading these teachings is what would make them happy. Now this was, the bigger picture and the legacy of Swami and Master and the work in India. But at the same time, on an everyday basis, Swami was very personal yet impersonal to all the people around him. So when Swami traveled, the travel was long. If he was coming from America, he would stop by in Italy and then fly, but a flight from Europe into India would still be 8 hours, and then probably at that time he was coming from Mumbai into Pune, and that's another 4 or 5 hours, or going into Vatunde, maybe it was longer. His body would be quite sore. So Narayani, who was assisting him at that time, this was in Delhi, got a person who was good at massage to offer Swami massage so that his muscles could relax and the body could relax. It was an old body. And so this man came and he did a very good massage for Swami, and Swami said, I feel very relaxed. But he did not have a massage table. So Swami asked him, "Do you have a massage table?" And the man said, "I don't have a massage table, sir, and I don't think I can afford one." So the massage was done on Swami's bed, which is not the best way of doing a massage. So Swami said to him that, "I would like to gift you a massage table." And the man said, "That's quite expensive. I've checked it out." And Swami said, "That's a gift from me." And the man went and bought the massage table. And of course, Swami paid for it. The next time when he came with that table. And he did Swami's massage. And at the end of it, he said, "Sir, I will not charge you." And Swami said, "No, this is your livelihood. And I want to pay for it." And so Swami paid him for that. The man walked out of the room and he met Narayani on the way out. And he was weeping in tears. He said, "I grew up in an orphanage. I never knew who my parents were. And I've never felt the love of a father. But today, through him, I feel the love of a father." And that's what Swami was to all of us, and that's who he continues to be to all of us. It's the love of a father. It disciplines, it protects, and it is affectionate, pure and unconditional. So I think these times of birthdays and Mahasamadhis are times of great blessings. And it is possible to tune into the vibrations. And he was a living saint who's deeply interested in each of our lives. And that's the relationship you can have with him, of a father, a silent guide. Whenever in trouble, you could ask him a question and he will send you an answer. Swami is always very eager to help. And at the same time, he doesn't hesitate from disciplining you when you get spoiled, just like a father. So I remember one example from my own life. This was the last satsang that Swami gave in Pune before he traveled to Italy. And gave a beautiful talk. This was at the amphitheater in Patunde. And at the end of it, he opened it up for questions. I've been a bit of an attention-seeking child around him. And there are many stories of how he has given me the attention that I've always sought. And I lost my father at a young age, and I always saw him in that kind of a role in my life. And so I asked this question. I said, "Swami, how do you get over self-pity?" It was the last question at that satsang. He was out of time. He just stared at me back. I was sitting maybe like 3-4 rows behind on that amphitheater step. And he just stared at me. It was as if he was sending a ray. And then he just looked at me like you would look at a spoiled child. And he said, "Serve more." And that was it. That was the answer to the question. But that's something that has stayed with me. And I think the lesson there is a lot of times when we feel things like self-pity, when we feel weak, when we feel a victim, we're also much into our own egos. The I, me, mine, the poor me, I deserve pity, I deserve attention. And that's how we behave like little children, and that's quite immature at one level. And it's, as a devotee, it's quite selfish to be in that state. Swami had so many things he could have felt sad about. There's so many things that happened in his life. There was character assassination that happened in the second round of suing, which has left its remnants on the internet. And we all know that's not who Swami was. But he always served, and he served more. And he came with this one desire to find God, and the next one was to share it with everyone. So we're all living that discipleship. He always wanted to be remembered as a disciple of Master. He did not want any other titles. He did not want any positions. He did not care about any of these things. But he always wanted to be a good disciple. And I think that's the role modeling he did through his entire life. And that's what we should all aspire to be a good disciple, a loyal disciple who lives the teachings. He doesn't care so much about, where are you on the loyalty scale even. But how do you remain true to the teachings? How do you remain attuned to that divine ray that he expressed of the lineage of the masters? That was what he shared with everyone. And that is what that has touched all our lives in direct and indirect ways. It never mattered whether we saw Swami, whether we were around him. But in the later years of his life, he came towards the end of his life to India. Those were times when he was more inward. But there were times when once in a while he would also be very social. And we got once in a while a chance to see that part of him. And he was a great host, he was a great entertainer, he had a great sense of humor. And most importantly, as I fondly remember Swami, what I remember was the expanded consciousness. So every time you went for a satsang or a gathering where he was going to give a talk or be with us, sometimes it was a Christmas celebration or sometimes it was Easter. Usually in the second half of the year is when he was in India. From a distance, you could feel his consciousness. It was as if he would reset all our heart rhythms to be in tune. So you could feel that joy, you could feel that lightness, you could feel that expansion in his presence. And that is what he continues to radiate to each one of us who comes on this path. And he did beautiful work for helping Master's teachings live on in our lives, whether it was the books he wrote, whether it was the music, whether it was the talks, whether it was the courses, or the films that he made. It was a life lived for God and a great inspiration for all of us as his and Master's children. So may his light always live within us. And wishing you many blessings on Swami's birthday tomorrow. And try and read more and more about his life and the many lessons that he taught us, which lives on as his legacy, as does Master's. Joy to you.